Hiya, it's Jackie from Parent Plus. I'm not sure whether I'm going to lose my signal. I've been working tonight and just picked my son up from Scouts, so I apologise for the lateness of this. But somebody posted in the group about what can we do about our children swearing. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to say. First off, it depends what age they are. Second off, it depends if it bothers you. It might sound a bit silly, but some families, some parents swear as a matter of course. It's a form of vocabulary that they use and it's not a problem. So there's something for me around parenting the way that suits us. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it depends what age the children are. Swearing is becoming more and more common with our children. If we are under the illusion that our children don't swear, I think we're fooling ourselves. For me, with my children, and I can only talk personally about how I dealt with it, is that it's when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. My eldest is 30, and he very rarely swears in front of me now, and to me that's respect. I know he swears out there. My son's 12, and I would imagine that he swears when he's with his friends as well, but it's when it's appropriate and when it's not. It's also how it's used. If our children are swearing at us, then that's not acceptable. Unfortunately, we can't stop them from doing certain things. We can try and encourage them to use other words by introducing different vocabulary. If they're young children, do they actually understand the words that they're using and why they're using them, or are they just mimicking the people around them? So it's about letting them know what's appropriate and what's not. Accepting certain language in society now is kind of the norm. To be perfectly honest, I F and Jeff sometimes. When I think it's appropriate, I don't do it in front of my children, but I do swear occasionally. So it's about the boundaries, what's comfortable for you and what's not comfortable for you. The ignoring technique sometimes works, is to just ignore them. The other technique is to point out that they're swearing and that you don't like it. You can put consequences in place. So for me, it's all about where you stand on this, whether it's important enough to put consequences in place and what those consequences are, and whether they're going to fuel more frustration and more anger in your children that could potentially cause them to swear more. So there's lots of different ways that we can handle this. I wouldn't put up with my child swearing at me. Swearing in the vicinity, I would notice it, I would clock it, I would acknowledge the fact that, you know, Kai, you don't use language like that in front of me, I don't appreciate it and you need to stop it. So you're kind of acknowledging the behaviour and saying that you don't appreciate it and then doing something about it if it continues. And that could be, you know, a consequence as in removing them from the situation. It could be a consequence that you take something off them. It's whatever's comfortable for you. I don't think it's a one rule fits all. If your child is swearing at you, that's a completely different thing altogether. But again, you can't stop them. What you can do is work on how it impacts on you and what you're going to do. I personally, if my son swore at me, I would remove myself from the situation. I would tell him clearly that I'm not going to stand here and listen to that. It's not appropriate. I don't appreciate it. And I would turn and walk away. That to me, rather than getting into an argument with our children, especially if they're teenagers, if they're using that language regularly outside, then it becomes the norm. So they're going to slip up. They're going to use it in inappropriate places, and it's about acknowledging that, acknowledging when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate, and what's acceptable for you as a parent and you as a family. So you might agree or disagree with what I'm saying, and that's absolutely fine. I would love more comments. I think the people are starting to comment on each other's posts with ideas and hints and tips, what's worked and what's not, and that's absolutely fantastic. But rather than doing a long blown out post, I thought I'd just jump on and do a quick video on it. If you've had any experience of it, if you've done something that works for you, then fantastic, post it and, you know, comment away on each other's. So just to recap, it's about if it bothers you, then you need to do something about it. But what's acceptable in one family might not be acceptable in another. And realistically, we can't stop our children from doing any form of behaviour. We can encourage them, but it's their decision at the end of the day, and it's what we're going to put in place as a consequence for that. The opposite to all of that, which should never be overlooked, is to praise them for using alternative language. When we fostered, we used to have a word a week, and we'd use the most ridiculous words just to increase their vocabulary. So think of an alternative, think of another word that they can use. I know when I was growing up, instead of saying S-H-I-T, I would go, oh, sugar. Everybody knew the word I actually wanted to say, but I would say sugar instead of it. Another one I used to use when I was growing up was bar steward instead of the obvious word. So language is wonderful. Children are going to experiment with different languages. So encourage it. Pick an obscure word like procrastination or something and have that as a word of the week, and how can we use it. So encourage language alternative to swear words. What do they mean when they're saying F-U-C-K off? They want you to go away, they want you to stop. So encourage them to use another word. There's lots of things that you can do. Somebody's commented, ask what they can do when they are angry, when they are calm, agree to a swear jar. Yeah, get money out of them. Good one. Make money out of it. Have a swear jar. So it's just thinking outside of the box sometimes, rather than saying I want them to stop and not do it, which often can be very difficult. Think of alternatives. Think outside the box, how you can encourage them to use alternative language, how you can let them know when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. There are certain swear words that make me cringe. The T word and the C word are two that I just, no way, no shape, no form are they acceptable for me. So I would be quite firm on them. Whereas other ones aren't too bad. So it's all down to your uniqueness as a family. So I hope that's helped. Feel free to comment, ask away, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.